Perfect competition describes markets such that no market participant is large enough to have the market price or the market power to set the price in the market. There is one single homogeneous product, and the price of this one single homogeneous product is set by the market itself collectively. Because of the conditions under perfect competition, there are very strict rules that operate in a perfectly competitive market. There are very many producers in the perfectly competitive market, and since there is so much of competition, it ensures what is called Pareto efficient outcomes. It serves as a natural benchmark against which we can contrast other market structures which are not so competitive and hence not so efficient. Pareto efficiency is obtained when resources are allocated in such a way such that no individual can be better off without making another individual worse off. It must be added that Pareto efficiency does not imply equity or fairness. This is because perfect competition is not found in the real world, and therefore real markets actually do not have Pareto optimality, and therefore there is this phenomenon called market failure. There exists another possible outcome when the individual may be better off without making someone worse off. Moreover, market failure results in inefficient allocation of resources, as the prices cannot achieve equilibrium because of market distortions, as the minimum wage requirements or price limits on specific goods exist, and this restricts the level of economic output. In this module, we will discuss one of the three important cases of market failure, that is imperfect information.
After studying this module, you shall be able to know about the concept of imperfect information, understand the information problem, learn different types of asymmetric information, and evaluate different problems caused by asymmetric information. As we are all aware, perfect competition assumes that all participants, that is, buyers and sellers in the market, have perfect information about the goods being bought and sold and their prices. However, in the real world, complete information is not available to everybody, as it also has a price like any other commodity. This imperfect information can occur in two basic situations. Firstly, information failure exists when some or all of the participants in an economic exchange do not have perfect knowledge, as in the case of a pure public good, where some information is available to all and the marginal cost of providing this to an additional person is zero. Secondly, information failure exists when one participant in an economic exchange knows more than the other, a situation referred to as the problem of asymmetric or unbalanced information, as in the case of private goods, where some information is available to only those who can pay for or have access to it otherwise. This results in misallocation of scarce resources, with buyers paying too much or too little, and firms producing too much or too little. Imperfect information is common and appears to exist in numerous market exchanges. Thus, unequal distribution of information among buyers and sellers can create some imperfect competition type situation, thus resulting in market failure, which is a situation where the allocation of goods and services is not efficient. That is, there exists another conceivable outcome where an individual may be made better off without making someone else worse off. The basic competitive model assumes that households and firms are well informed. This means that each one in the market has perfect information about the market. The model also assumes that consumers know their preferences and firms too are perfectly well informed. If consumers do not have perfect information about the market price, any firm can charge higher price than the market price for its output. In that case, market price will not be fixed, and the firm which charges higher price will generate positive profit. But if all the consumers have perfect information about the market price, none of the firms can charge a higher price. If the firm charges a higher price for the homogeneous good it produces, the firm will automatically be eliminated from the market. Similar is the case for firms operating in the competitive structure. If firms do not have perfect information about markets, their cost conditions may differ. Some households can charge more wage for the same labor hour. Therefore, for the existence of competitive structure, it is a necessary condition that all the individuals, that is, households and firms in the economy, have perfect information about all the markets in the economy. Without having that, the most crucial equality of P equals MC in competitive structure will no longer hold and consequently result in market failure. Information, just like any good, has value. People are willing to pay for it. There is a market for information with its price, just as there is a market for labor and a market for capital. However, the markets for information are far from perfect. Even after the firm or consumer buys all the information he thinks is worth paying for, his information is still far from perfect. Imperfect information can be caused by the following: misunderstanding the true costs or benefits of a product, for example, the side effects of using tanning salons or painkillers; uncertainty about costs and benefits, for example, should younger workers be buying into pension schemes when we can only guess at conditions in 40 years' time; complex information when buying specialist products; inaccurate or misleading information, for example, persuasive advertising may oversell the benefits of a product, leading to more consumption than is optimal. Spam mail can be a cause of misinformation for consumers. Addiction, for example, drug addicts may be unable to stop consumption of harmful substances. Lack of awareness. A good example here is that of tuition fees in Britain. Many parents and students find the system of university finance very difficult to understand. Any exchange or transaction cannot always be certain and may involve a considerable amount of uncertainty. Uncertainty leads to economic inefficiency if both sides of the market, that is, buyers and sellers, do not have a similar level of information. There are several goods and services for which both sides cannot have the same level of information. Often, one party to a transaction, that is, the seller or the buyer of a product or service, has more information than the other party regarding the quality of the product or service, and this is a case of asymmetric information. The seller of a used car knows much more about the product quality than the prospective buyer. Even if the offered second-hand car is of top quality, the prospective buyer will always be suspicious of its quality and service, and with good reason. This is a clear case of asymmetric information. The markets for insurance, financial credit, and even employment are also characterized by asymmetric information. Information asymmetry can lead to two main problems. One, adverse selection, immoral behavior that takes advantage of asymmetric information before a transaction. For example, a person who is not in optimal health may be more inclined to purchase life insurance than someone who feels fine. 2. Moral hazard, immoral behavior that takes advantage of asymmetric information after a transaction. For example, if someone has fire insurance, they may be more likely to commit arson to reap the benefits of the insurance. Examples include landlords who know more about their properties than tenants. For example, student tenants looking to rent some accommodation. Mortgages. A borrower knows more about their ability to repay a loan than the lender, and insufficient checks might be made. Car insurance companies who cannot tell the risks associated with selling premiums to each single driver, they have to pool risks. Some students have superior knowledge about how to get into the elite or best universities, including prior information about which courses to take. Doctors have superior knowledge about which drugs and treatments to recommend to their patients. Insider information of traders in financial markets, information advantages for high frequency stock market traders. Another important example of the problems created by asymmetric information is the market for lemons. That is, a defective product such as a used car that will require a great deal of costly repairs and is therefore not worth its price, as discussed by George Akerlof. George Akerlof has provided a simple explanation based on imperfect information. Sellers of used cars know exactly the quality of the cars that they are selling, but prospective buyers do not. As a result, the market price for used cars will depend on the quality of the average used car available for sale. The owners of lemons would then tend to receive a higher price than their cars are worth, while the owners of high quality used cars would tend to get a lower price than their cars and would otherwise withdraw their cars from the market, thus lowering the average quality and price of the remaining cars available for sale. Sellers of the now above average quality cars withdraw their cars from the market, further reducing the quality and price of the remaining used cars offered for sale. This process continues until only the lowest quality cars are sold in the market at the appropriate very low price. Thus, the end result is that low quality cars drive high quality cars out of the market. In addition to adverse selection, moral hazards are also a result of asymmetric information. A moral hazard is a situation where one person takes more risks because someone else bears the burden of those risks. A moral hazard may occur where the actions of one party may change to the detriment of another after a financial transaction has taken place. In relation to asymmetric information, moral hazard may occur if one party is insulated from risk and has more information about its actions and intentions than the party paying for the negative consequences of the risk. More broadly, moral hazard occurs when the party with more information about its actions or intentions has a tendency or incentive to behave inappropriately from the perspective of the party with less information. For example, moral hazards occur in employment relationships involving employees and management. Let us look at situations where moral hazard may exist. State provision of free health care may encourage poor individual health care, such as following a poor diet, smoking, or using excessive alcohol. Students who pay for private education may believe that this provides an insurance against failing exams and may work less hard than students in state education. Welfare benefits may encourage individuals to rely on the state and not train or retrain if they become unemployed. Banks taking excessive risks because they believe that the Bank of England or the government will help them out if they run into financial difficulty. The recent credit and financial crisis is commonly regarded as an example of moral hazard, with large banks in the United States and United Kingdom expecting to be bailed out following their excessive risk taking. Let us now discuss the search problem. A basic information problem is that consumers must find out what goods are available on the market, at what price, and where. Households must learn about job opportunities as well as opportunities for investing their funds. Firms, by the same token, have to figure out the demand curve they face, where and at what price they can obtain inputs. Both sides of the market needs to find out about their opportunity sets. If search were costless or information perfect, as in the standard competitive model, consumers would search until they found the cheapest price, and no store charging more than the lowest price on the market would ever have any customers. Price dispersion combined with variations in quality means that households and firms must spend considerable energies in searching. Workers search for a good job, firms look for good workers. Customers search for the lowest prices and best values. The process by which this kind of information is gathered is called search. Search is an important and costly economic activity. Because it is costly, a search stops before one has all the relevant information. The general rule is that a consumer should continue the search for lower prices as long as the expected marginal benefit just equals the marginal cost. Marginal cost of search is the additional cost generated through extra effort directed towards the research for information. The cost of information search includes the opportunity cost of using the four factors of production: labor, capital, land, and entrepreneurship. The extra cost generated by search effort increases with the amount of search. Marginal benefit of search is the additional benefit generated through extra effort directed towards the search for information. The benefit of information search includes lower prices, new production techniques, and the intrinsic satisfaction of knowing. The extra benefit generated by search effort decreases with the amount of search. With enough search effort, the marginal benefit of search declines to zero. The expected marginal benefit of searching declines with the amount of search, while the marginal cost of additional search rises with increased search. Consider the figure where the x-axis represents the time spent searching and the y-axis represents the marginal benefit or the marginal cost of searching. The amount of search chosen will be at point n, where the expected marginal benefit just equals the marginal cost. To generalize, in the face of inadequate information, consumers will incur search costs for A. Identifying lower prices, and B. Better quality products. Because consumers face different marginal costs of search, they will end the search at different points and end up paying different prices for the product. Different producers will charge different prices. Producers selling the product at a higher price will sell only to those consumers who have less information because they stop searching for lower prices before others. For all its efficiency in allocating economic resources, a competitive market economy cannot accomplish some important social goals without careful government intervention. Some of these broader goals also relate to economic efficiency. Others concern the distribution of income, nutritional well-being, and security of the society. The government should only intervene in the economy when markets are not efficient and when the intervention would improve efficiency. Therefore, the first condition for government intervention is evidence that a market failure exists. The second condition is that the intervention will make an improvement. This will depend on how significant the failure is and on the government's ability to design and implement an effective intervention. The modern world is characterized by imperfect markets, and besides, there exists many goods and commodities for which there is no market. These two factors, imperfect markets and the lack of existence of markets, necessitates government intervention with a view to enhance, if not maximize, social welfare. The governmental role can be distributive, stabilizing, or regulatory. Moreover, imperfect markets lead to information problems, which may result not only in inefficient markets but also in market failures, and government intervention may then be required to make information available equally to each participant in the market. Sometimes government intervention is also needed to develop some markets which are otherwise non existent or will take a long time to develop if left to market forces alone.
It is well understood by both economists and politicians that efficient outcome of market forces does not necessarily imply satisfactory distribution of resources. Most economists would like to fix the resource distribution with some sort of neutral transfer via the government budget to influence the distribution of economic welfare. This approach preserves the efficiency of the market solution by not distorting the producer's or consumer's choice, but most of the policy makers find it impossible to follow this practice. This is particularly true in the case of developing countries. Now, let us look at the overall summary of this chapter. Perfectly competitive markets ensure a Pareto efficient outcome, but it is not found in reality. Therefore, real markets do not achieve Pareto optimality and experience what is known as market failure. Market failure results in inefficient allocation of resources as the prices cannot achieve equilibrium in this distorted market. Since perfect competition assumes that buyers and sellers in markets have perfect information, it is assumed that the markets are perfect. However, in the real world, complete information is not available to everyone and it is distorted. There are asymmetries in information, and all of this leads to an inefficient allocation and inefficient price being established in the market. The unequal distribution of information amongst buyers and sellers creates some kind of imperfect markets or incomplete markets, thus resulting into what is called market failure. Asymmetric information leads to two problems. One is adverse selection and the other is moral hazard. What happens is that in a situation where the sellers have more information than the buyers, they take advantage of this and they indulge in an immoral behavior whereby they are able to shift the risk from the entity, the economic agent who knows more, that is the supplier or the producer, and the risk is shifted on to the buyer or the consumer. This is moral hazard. If we consider the situation of used cars, a seller knows more about the poor quality of the car than the buyer, gives rise to one form of incomplete market which is known as market for lemons. Moral hazard occurs in the employment relationship involving the employees and the management. When the firm cannot observe all the actions of the employees and the managers, then there is a chance that some kind of careless and selfish decision making will occur. The search is important and costly and economic activity. Therefore, it is not possible for the employer to constantly keep monitoring the employee. Government intervention may be required to make such information available equally to all the participants in the market.